Hello and welcome back to yet another Geek Show.
That was awful. I'm mad you did this. Finish introducing yourself.
I did. That was Star Fox for I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
Oh, okay. They were supposed to get that. I thought you were going to translate afterwards. I'm your host, Dalton Lee.
Oh, for you? It's
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. How could I have gotten that wrong?
Your Star Fox is getting sloppy. And your arrogance.
Anyway. I've never touched this franchise, and I only did now because the conversations leading to this, we posted one day on the Broccoli Bomber Twitter asking for suggestions of video game songs to cover for our band, Limit Break. And our buddy Wolf Ko-san responded with the Corneria theme from Star Fox. And we started writing that immediately, and it's pretty much written, not recorded at all. But I realized halfway through writing it, man, we have a serious habit of writing covers from songs, covers of songs from games we haven't actually played, or that at least one of us two hasn't played. Let's rectify that situation before we finish this song.
Fair.
Speaking of which, 2 covers from Chrono Trigger coming whenever the rights pass. What's the word I'm looking for? Dealt with? Clear. Clear's the word I'm looking for. When the rights clear, whatever day that is.
Could be tomorrow. Definitely not when you're hearing this.
So, with that said, we played this game because in a roundabout way, Wolf Ko-san technically demanded it. Not really. There's no rule that we need to play the games we cover songs from. It just feels like the right thing to do.
For now.
Anyway. What'd you think? Have you ever played a Star Fox game before?
Oh, yeah.
Doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Have you played this one before just now?
Yes. I played it when I first seen it on the Switch thing, which, boy, am I glad I finished it before this whole thing went down with my Nintendo account. If you are confused by that statement, go and listen to the previous weekly to this Spotlight episode where I talk about it. Because, man, I am still mad. We just finished recording that weekly, dude, and it brought up some terrifying shit in my brain.
Oh man.
I just want my games back, dude.
All right. First time jumping into a Star Fox game.
Oh yeah, you first.
If I don't have a lot to say about this, it's because it was only like a half hour long. If you only did one of the routes, there are routes. They divide the difficulties into separate routes.
That's not an uncommon thing for these games, by the way.
So I'll be fair and say, it's short because I only did one route. I could have made it a more substantial game if I played through the others. But maybe it says something that I wasn't inspired to play through the others. I don't know about you, but for me, what I'm seeing playing this game and it being my only Star Fox is potential that didn't really work out on the Super Nintendo.
Yes. I mean, it definitely it had tons of potential. It was one of those games that you would like. It feels like it would have been a game that should have launched with the console.
Well, I think it did. I think this was a launch.
Was it?
Title. Yeah, I think this was a... You can verify that while I'm talking. I think this was a launch title for the Super Nintendo, but what I'm saying is, like, graphically, it's very impressive for the Super Nintendo. I was shocked that the Super Nintendo was able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
No, you know what? It's wrong. I'm thinking about F-Zero that I talked about recently on the show a couple weeks ago as a launch title. But like, to me, F-Zero was kind of the epitome of what this could do. This console, I mean, Donkey Kong Country stands out as a highlight of what the Super Nintendo is capable of. But like,
to answer your question, this game did not release with the Super Nintendo.
Okay. The thing here is that the Super Nintendo could barely accomplish this. It did it technically.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel that your games should have more than let's guesstimate 12 frames a second, then it didn't really do it. It's just overly ambitious, which isn't necessarily like a bad sign for the franchise as we move forward with these episodes, because I don't really have complaints about the game itself. I have complaints about the console's ability to let me play the game. So, I mean, even when you play this on modern hardware, whether that's, in our case, we both played it on the Switch, whether that's on some other emulator.
I'm going to apologize. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off. But the noise you just heard from me was a motorcycle blaring off into space. I apologize, guys.
I was just going to accept that was a fart and not acknowledge it.
Nope, that was a motorcycle. I would definitely tell you if it was my ass.
I was also going to edit it out, so that wasn't necessary.
But Thanks
for drawing attention to it and making me leave it there.
It's all good. You're welcome. Anyways, I'm in total agreement with you. With like, it's not the game's fault. It's definitely the console, because it was not designed to do this kind of game.
Mm-mm.
In fact, I almost didn't finish it because of how, like, I always pick on you because you're like, if the game's not 60 frames a second, man, I throw up. I apparently have a higher tolerance for that than you, but oh my God, I'm looking at it and I'm like especially the scenes where it's like a predetermined flight path.
Yeah.
Like those scenes, I'm like, I'm like, no.
Yeah. Well, and like, I know that when some of our Spotlight series start getting into like the N64 era in particular,
yeah,
we're going to start running into games that like, oh man, this game was 20 frames a second. How did we deal with this? This was frustrating. But on like at this era, right, that wasn't the norm. Like 60 frames was the norm here.
Yeah.
On the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. When we started trying to push 3D graphics, we really slipped backwards and said, oh, we need this hardware to squeeze out everything it can do. Suddenly 20 frames is acceptable. And this game, this is before those 3D consoles, but this game attempting to do 3D, I'm not sure if it hit 20 frames.
In certain parts, it definitely did not.
And I don't know, when there's performance issues in a game, like, I don't know, I've rarely on this show, I've rarely complained like, oh, I played this game and it didn't perform well. We're about to start spotlighting Assassin's Creed games. We're going to run into that. We're going to run into,
that's
I have to complain that this game didn't perform well. But this was legitimately to the point of affecting the playability severely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that it's hard for me to talk. It got so far in the way. Yeah. It's just hard for me to have other things to talk about.
The gameplay,
music, I guess.
The music is good. But the problem is I only really paid attention to the Corneria theme because half of the time, it's if there's less things on the screen, the game runs better. So sure. I was focusing so hard on killing everything that I could kill to make the game run smoother that I couldn't even pay attention to the soundtrack.
There were portions of the game where I was like, okay, it doesn't actually do me any good to kill this enemy because like it'll almost be off the screen by the time I do. Mm-hmm. So I could technically just finish this without shooting at anything. But if I get these guys off the screen, it might run a little bit.
That's exactly it, man. The other thing that I want to point out is I don't know if this game would be as hard because I had a hard time with it. I don't think this game would have been as hard if it didn't have that the console's limitation. Because
the difficulty really might be like
trying to gauge your
around how hard it is to control.
Mm-hmm. Like that's the actual difficulty of the game, but you can tell they were trying to go for a a finessed sort of view of the game, but the console wouldn't have it.
Because there's situations where like when the original Resident Evil gets its HD re-release and people say, oh, it better still include, at least optionally, the tank controls in there. Well, that's because when they had to figure out how difficult to make the game, they had tank controls, and it was a limitation to your ability to control the situation.
Yeah, tank controls were intentional because it made you panic more, and that's what they wanted. I didn't know if you actually knew that. That was on purpose. Tank controls were on purpose in that game.
Yeah. Well, even if it wasn't, even if it was some other limitation, even if they just hadn't figured out 3D controls the way we like them now, the fact of the matter would still be, hey, this is how the game works. So when we're planning out how difficult it is to get down this hallway, it's based around how hard it is to control your character. And here, it is very hard to control this game because it runs this way.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I abused the hell out of the rewind function on the Switch when I played it. Because I didn't want to have to die and restart either at the beginning or at the beginning of the stage.
I save stated at the start of a level and upon reaching a boss fight.
Oh, really?
That was it.
I did a save state because I played it in 2 sittings. I got halfway through my story and then save stated and then went back to it the next day, which might have been a mistake because the game does amp up in difficulty in the later stages, and having that that time to decompress and focus on other things at the time, I don't think it did me any favors. So this is definitely a try and beat it in one sitting kind of game. But that rewind function made it a lot easier because I could see where I screwed up. Like, especially in the last level, in particular, because I would be flying and avoiding other bullets, but then those bombs, the big grenade bomb things that they fling at you, I would frequently run into those because I'd be so focused on getting away from the bullets because they were traveling faster than those. And the fact that those big bombs look like stars until they get right up on you. So I would bank left and then run right into one and then explode. And then I'd have to rewind. And then instead of banking to the left, I'd fly down and then to the left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the little subtle changes like that, which, I mean, I do appreciate the rewind function because that, like, if you're a competitive gamer, I don't know if there's any competitive gaming for Star Fox, but that feature is super useful to, like, pay attention to certain things as they happen. So at least there's that.
So if this game, did you play on the easy route?
Which one was the easy route?
Oh, you didn't know? You just picked one.
Yeah, I just picked one.
I don't remember which one's which. I know it's not in order.
Like,
I know it's
up,
not
middle,
easy,
down.
medium, hard. I think the middle one's easy, and you start out with that one already selected unless you move to another one.
Wow, then I'm awful. I just suck at this game, apparently.
Yeah, you think you play it on easy? I mean, I struggled too. I mean, I did only save at the beginning of a level and at a boss fight, so I did have to play through the levels, but I struggled. But because it ran badly, I think if it ran acceptably, and maybe there's like a ROM hack that fixes that situation.
Yeah, if there is, then I would play it.
Yeah, there's probably a way around it with unofficial emulators.
Even if it ran at a solid 30.
Yeah, I probably would have been tempted to move on to the other routes and properly finish it. Because it wasn't by any means bad. I mean, the general gameplay loop works for me. The level designs themselves I enjoyed. The boss fights were actually super cool. They were really clever about the boss designs.
Well, they had
the final boss was super cool.
he freaked me out, man. Like, with the boss fights, like they got super creative with the lack of anything they had. Because I mean, all the resources were being poured into how the game played, so they could only really use basic polygons, and I could see what they were going for, like almost intuitively.
Yeah, and I liked the the switching between the like first person and third person levels. The like on the planet levels and in space levels, like that variety was cool. A game this short did not need to try to have that kind of variety, but it did, and it was cool.
Yeah, the damage to your ship actually mattered where it landed. Like your wings could blow off, or you could lose a blaster. Like that stuff was super useful. The one thing that I wish was a little bit better was how you could regain health. Because with the hoops that they would make you fly like Superman through, they weren't always obvious. Like, in the one level that I played that was on a planet where it actually had a sky, where it was a blue backdrop and a blue backdrop and not a backdrop.
A blue backdrop.
Yeah, I can't talk right now. A blue backdrop versus a black backdrop. You were able to see the hoops because they were diamonds that were, or not diamonds, but triangles that were segmented to make a giant circle, and you would fly through them to gain health or bombs. When they were in space, it was near impossible to see them, even when they were that golden color, because not all the stars were white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the color of the bullets matched the same as those golden hoops, or which they did rectify in later games, I will tell you. Like Star Fox 64, it looks much better and performed much better. And even when it did, when it did lag out, because that's the first game I ever played was Star Fox 64.
Sure.
I enjoyed that one because even though, like, it still had the same limitations that every console did back then with 3D, it still ran smoother because you could tell what was going on around you because there was more texture and more environment involved instead of basic polygon.
Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned first person and third person view. Which perspective did you play in?
It forced you. It depended on the level.
You could have hit the minus button and changed perspective at any time.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Which one did you prefer?
No idea. Well, when I was playing it, naturally, it's been a few weeks now since I played. If the way I remember it is, you were third person when you were on planet, and you were first person when you were in space. I guess apparently you had the option to switch, but without switching it, that's what it did. I preferred being able to see my ship because a big element of it was dodging.
That's fair. Yeah.
So
I tried playing first person in a space mission. I couldn't do it. It almost made me like quit because it was making me nauseous.
Yeah. Well, I had to play that way because I had no idea.
Ugh. I feel sorry, man. Yeah, I had no clue. This game, it was definitely ahead of its time. I mean, it's still enjoyable, regardless of its console's limitations. But I don't know. I maybe when I get my games back, hashtag get Alex's games back, or hashtag give Alex his games.
Hashtag give Alex your games.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It sucks because like I know I'm gonna be like, I actually kind of want to go back and play it, and I know as soon as we're done recording, that's all I'm gonna want to do because I can't. You know what I mean?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Maybe, I don't know.
That said, I'm calling this game the very lightest recommend, still a recommend, only because
the history behind it.
We didn't touch on it much, but the music is great. I do think the very first song you hear, Corneria's theme, which we are covering, I do think it's the best song in the game. So You could stop there, but the rest of the soundtrack is pretty consistently good.
Yeah. How about this? You play the first level and then go listen to Limit Break, or check them out and see if it's there yet.
When a game is somewhat important, even if I don't have a great time with it, I tend to still recommend it if it's short enough that, like, I recently did this with the original Donkey Kong in a weekly episode. I'm like, even if you don't really have fun because it's dated, like, there's a history lesson there, and you can get the point in just a few minutes. So you may as well.
Yeah, that's fair. It doesn't take too long, especially with technology now with save states. You could literally, or rewind feature on the Switch. Like, as soon as you die,
fight your way through it if you suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I did.
So yeah, light recommend. We're going to have a discussion about whether our next Star Fox episode is technically on Star Fox 2 or Star Fox 64.
Huh.
We'll figure that out sometime, but in the next meantime, and in the next meantime. That's all, folks.
God damn it.